Advent is the hush in the theatre between the house lights going down and the curtain going up. Advent is turning off the lights before you bring in the birthday cake. The conductor raises his baton. The choir takes a collective breath. The night before the wedding, they each read through their old love letters. Holiday faces pressed to car windows. Who will be the first to see the sea? The photo of your first grandchild with the plane ticket that will take you to meet her. Refugees in a sinking raft spy the lights of the lifeboat. You wake to the smell of coffee and cooked breakfast. Someone is singing in the kitchen. Catch your breath. We're aiming at that mountain in the distance, but isn't the view lovely from this hill? Jigsaw bits, still scattered, but you've pieced together the frame, ground and sky. Waking in a cold house, hear the heating tick and hum into life. Warmth is on the way. Holding the final book in the series for the first time, creak open the cover, smell the pages, read slowly. Unseen bulbs asleep in frozen earth. Handwritten markers hold promises of spring colors. A snow cloud behind winter trees, recalling the shape of the leaves. The table is set. The balloons blown up. Bunting hung. We jump at each crunch of footstep on gravel in the driveway. Are we nearly there yet? Yes. Yes, we are. Amazing story on my family tree. I learn it hungrily, rooting for the root of me. A card that says, I can't wait to be with you. Open the blind. Sunrise. The sky is all the colors. Darkness shrugs away. All of these things have one thing in common. They are not observations from the comfort of the finish line or the celebration on the battlefield after securing victory. No, these describe the moments of anticipation, of hand-squeezing, breath-holding yearning for what might be just around the corner, what is still to come, what we have hoped for so desperately. I wonder if you are familiar with waiting, with the very lived reality of the not yet. The truth is, the story of the birth of Jesus is heavily littered with the experience of waiting. From the wait between labor contractions, measuring the distance between pains, Mary and Joseph wait to meet their little one. To the wait of a 9-month scandalous teenage pregnancy, tinged with morning sickness and exhaustion, uncertainty and wonder. To the hopeless waiting of Elizabeth and Zechariah, who thought their time was up and they would never see their hopes fulfilled in a longed-for child. But all of those details pale in comparison to the weight of an expectant people who for centuries before an angel appeared to Mary had heard prophesied the promise of a coming Messiah. Because for us, what the flick of a page in our Bibles is, from Malachi's closing remarks to Matthew's opening sentences, is the vast gap of 400 years. A weight we often overlook in the retelling of the story. If breath was ever held, if hope was ever threadbare but clung to in desperate anticipation, this was the moment. A song that we often sing on a Sunday morning puts it like this: in the darkness we were waiting, without hope, without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes. To fulfill the law and prophets, to a virgin came the word, from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt. To fulfill the law and prophets, to a virgin came the word. I am mostly intrigued in the Christmas story by the detail of our holy book and the weaving together of threads from many different voices crying in the wilderness throughout centuries and even millennia. Prophets and priests, widows and prostitutes, the very earth groaning, all of it announcing and anticipating the arrival of the one who, as Colossians 1:17 puts it, is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Whether it's the nations being blessed through the lineage of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Judah and David, just as it was written, Isaiah proclaiming that the virgin will conceive and give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel in Isaiah 7:14. Hosea's foretelling of the escape to Egypt to protect the infant Christ from the grasp of a jealous ruler, Hosea 11 verse 1. To Micah, setting the scene for our very familiar little town of Bethlehem in Micah 5 verse 2. The details are important. Not just as some intellectual exercise or even like a building of a body of evidence and proof to the identity of the Christ child, but because this whole story is beautifully woven together, taking us on a journey, leading us to and revealing the very character and nature of God. The details in Hebrew scripture foretelling the birth of Christ are not just hope-filled coincidences or literary magic tricks designed to intrigue and impress the reader. They are a roadmap to a destination, all of it leading to encounter with the God who keeps his promises. But what does that mean? What does that mean for us 2,000 years after the event? And not in some cosmic, otherworldly realm or some lofty theological framework. What does it practically mean for us in the gritty reality of life? Us who are still wading through the not yet, wading in the dark of this moment. What does it mean to trust a God who keeps his promises? I sometimes think that we could do a better job in the Western church revisiting some of the popularized ideas of what God promises to us. I think if we spent any length of time actually really studying the words of Jesus and what he promised to those who followed him, we would discover that some of what we think we can expect isn't in there at all. But he does make promises. So what does he promise? Well, there's too many things to name in one morning, so I've chosen just a couple to encourage our hearts this morning as we wait in this Advent season. Emmanuel, God is with us. John 15 verse 4 says this, "Abide in me and I will abide in you." This is possibly one of the most stunningly simple transactions that we can participate in. That all we have to do is abide in him, live in him, posture our hearts and minds and imaginations towards him, daily step into a new and fresh response to his invitation of love, and he promises to set up home in us. The God of the universe, the maker of heaven and earth, is pleased to dwell in the temple of our hearts, and we can know him and in him find our being. This is a transaction of love. That the God who came to the cradle in the dirt can be found in my muck, in my mess, if I simply allow him access to it. The theologian Ian Simpkins puts it like this: Emmanuel, God with us. That means God is with us in the hospital, in the divorce lawyer's office, during end of term exams, changing nappies in prison, on the first date, during the ugly cry, working the graveyard shift, working the 12 steps, at the office, at the gym, in therapy, at the checkout, in the delivery room, doing the dishes, on the bus, at the custody hearing, at the table, in AA, in the waiting room, during chemo, in recovery, at the funeral, at the altar, when we thought we'd be married by now, when the death do us part turns into there's someone else, when we are missing the one who's not here, when the pregnancy test is positive, when it's negative, when it's everything we hoped for, when it's nothing we anticipated, when it's cancer again, when the kids stop coming home, when they reject what they once believed, when we're not sure we believe, when we can't sing the songs, today, tomorrow, on the 25th of December and every day after. God is not just looking after us. He isn't merely mindful of us. He's come to dwell with us. The word did not become a theory to be debated, a concept to be pondered, or a philosophy to be discussed. The word became a person to be followed, worshipped, and loved. There is an invitation for some of us this Advent to move house, to change address, and to allow God to take up residence again in a fresh way in our hearts. Emmanuel, God is with us. Promise number 2, God delights in moving through us. Matthew 4, verse 19, Jesus says, "Follow me and I will make you fishers of men." Not follow me because I can see how fully qualified you are and ready, but follow me and I will complete the work of transformation. I will do the hard stuff. Isn't it interesting that when we face disappointment, pain, setback, or hopelessness, the first thing we tend to do is stop moving. We freeze. Our awareness is swallowed by our perceived lack and our pain. And I will never belittle anyone's story, journey, or pain. But we love a God who simply will not allow the experiences of the dark to become the disqualifications for carrying his light. Let me say that again. We love a God who simply will not allow the experiences of the dark to become the disqualifications for carrying his light. There are some of us this Advent season who need to begin to move again, trusting that his delight is to move in and through you, transforming our pain into purpose that sees many encounter him in fresh ways. There are people in your life, in your workplace, in your school class, on your street, in this city, in this room, who right now are struggling under the weight of heartache, desperately trying to hold it all together and make sense of the brokenness they see around them. Allow him to both dwell in you and move through you this Advent. God delights in moving through us. Number 3, his law is love and his gospel is peace. John 14, verse 27, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid." We've talked about it this morning already. Isaiah describes him as the Prince of Peace. And yet this Prince of Peace recognizes that life does not come without certain experiences of strife, anguish, pain, heartache, disappointment, betrayal, grief, loss. In fact, he also promises, rather annoyingly, that in this life you will have trouble. Jesus is a realist. And yet we are those who are invited to encounter this gentle prince in the midst of chaos with a peace that surpasses human understanding. This surely is the gospel of the good news of Jesus. That while I am still a mess, broken, and whiplashed by the mess of others and the world around me, God offers the gift of a baby who changes the world. He comes to those who sit on the outside of polite society, sometimes guarding sheep, usually smelly. He reveals his glory to those who are regarded as lowly, less than, poor, and inconvenient. He invites those from afar into the story. Foreign cultures and differing traditions collide at the stable because all have a part to play. All have an invitation to the party. And anyone who beholds him is marked with peace, the gift of his presence. I'm going to invite Jane to come up and play for us. And this morning, we're simply going to ask a couple of questions of ourselves. I want us to reflect on our own hearts this morning. I want us to consider where and how we are waiting this Advent season. I have 3 questions, and I'll take them in turn, each one, and we'll sit with it for just a moment, and I want you to think about it. Maybe you'll find it helpful to write. If you don't want to write, that's okay. You can just consider it in your own heart and your own thoughts. But be honest with yourself today. Question 1. Have I set up camp outside of the hope of Jesus? Are there any parts of my heart that have become off limits to his indwelling presence? How might I respond in a fresh way this Advent season to the simple invitation to abide in Jesus and have him abide in me? Question 2. How am I moving towards participation in this good news story? Am I creating room for God to move through me for the sake of the world? For some of you this morning, the answer is no, and that's okay. Maybe take a moment and ask God to spark creativity in your imagination for an idea, something tangible that you could do to participate in the coming of this kingdom, in the act of bringing this good news story to the world around you. question 3. Have I encountered the Prince of Peace this Advent? Take a moment to ask for a deposit of peace that surpasses understanding and holds you throughout the festive season. I want to finish this morning with just a simple breath prayer. If you aren't familiar with breath prayers, they're just a beautiful practice, something that helps us to pray in a fresh way. It helps our bodies to engage with what we are saying. Sarah Bessie, who is a beautiful voice in the Christian world, she writes these lovely and simple breath prayers, and she has an Advent one for us this morning. It is simply, teach us how to wait well with defiance and compassion. And so what we will do is I'll lead us in it in a moment, and we will take a deep breath. Teach us to wait well and breathe out with defiance and compassion. And we'll do it 3 times, and then I'll pray a blessing over us to end. Teach us to wait well with defiance and compassion. Teach us how to wait well with defiance and compassion. Teach us how to wait well with defiance and compassion. Prince of Peace, I ask that you would invade hearts and minds and imaginations this morning. I pray that you would come in a very real way and reveal yourself to us, your people, today. In the swirling chaos that is this experience of life, would we know something that sits above it all and yet enters into the chaos with us, that can be found in the dirt of the cradle of our hearts, beautiful and holy and transformational. Prince of Peace, guard our minds, our hearts. And lead us into defiant actions of compassion that transform the world around us. For those of us who have stopped moving, I pray you embolden us today to begin to move again, to embody and enact this good news story that you invite us to participate in. have your way in each of us, in the places that we go, the conversations that we have. We say we love you.
Joining us at Foyle Vineyard Church. We love walking out this adventure of being a family together on mission. If you've joined us for the first time today, we'd love to connect with you further. Head over to our website www.foylevineyard.co.uk and click I'm New to keep up to date with all the ways in which you can get involved with this busy family. Have a wonderful week and God bless.